You just need one person that can go.
You mean who? You mean Jay?
No.
What's that?
2, 1. Thank you. And good
I made a
evening,
birdie.
and welcome to the September 11th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting for the Town of Smiths Falls. I'm Councillor Jennifer Miller, and I'll be your chairperson this evening. I would ask that you please pause and reflect as I start our meeting with our land acknowledgement. On September 11th, 2023, we acknowledge that the sacred land on which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. I'll call the meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. Could I have a motion to approve our agenda? Thank you, Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Quinn, that the September 11th Committee of the Whole agenda be approved as circulated. Does anyone have a disclosure of pecuniary interest or a conflict of interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none. We have a recommended motion on approval of minutes, that the minutes of the August 28th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting be approved as circulated. Could I have, thank you, Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Quinn. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. So I'd like to welcome Amber Koval as our delegation this evening. Amber is the Business Development and Program Officer at Valley Heartland Community Futures Development Corporation. And she's going to give us an update on what's happening there. Welcome, Amber. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm feeling a little nostalgic. For those of you who don't know, I worked at the Town of Smiths Falls for about 6 years before I transitioned over to Valley Heartland, getting my start at Heritage House Museum before I came over here to Economic Development. So I didn't get 3 feet before I was hugging somebody. So it's nice to be back here today. Next slide. So I'm really here tonight just to give you who are we and what we do, kind of a refresher, because I know some of you are familiar with the work of Valley Heartland. But we're Community Futures Development Corporation. We are one of 260 some across the nation, a program that rolled out in the 80s. Each Community Futures office is a nonprofit. So our office, Valley Heartland, is its standalone not-for-profit, but we all deliver the federal program Community Futures. Our office actually opened in 1988 down the road on Main Street here in Smiths Falls above a Chinese food restaurant and under an apartment with a leaky tub with 1 staff and $1.5 million in the bank for lending. Today we manage a 5,000 square foot innovation center over in Samir's building. We have 4 staff and we manage an investment fund of $9.5 million. Next slide. So Valley Heartland alludes to our service area. So we cover all the municipalities within Lanark County and the municipal section, the northern part of Leeds and Grenville that covers the Rideau Canal. So Westport, Rideau Lakes, Merrifield, Wolford. We're the 2nd largest area covered in Eastern Ontario and the 3rd largest in Southern Ontario, which is something Renfrew never lets us forget, that they're just a little bit bigger than us. Next slide. Every Community Futures office has 3 pillars of business: business loans, services, and community economic development. And I'll break down what each of those pillars are in the next coming slides. So what is a community investment fund? It is a unique to Community Futures economic development tool to stimulate business growth in a community. So as I mentioned, we currently manage about $9.5 million, and we use this fund to lend out loans to small and medium-sized businesses, loans with an interest that helps us build the fund. And since inception, that has accumulated to be about $33 million that we've invested in local businesses since that time. But we don't function the same as a bank. So when we lend, we follow something called the 5 C's of lending. So where there are crossover with a traditional bank is capital. Are you putting money into the business? collaterals or something we can use to secure the loan, and credit, what does your credit history look like? But where we differ is community and character. So we look at what you bring as an entrepreneur, what skills you have. Do you have the passion and the determination to run a business? And community, what impact does it have to our lower tier? Are you creating jobs? Does it support the local supply chain? If this business didn't exist, would it be a detriment to the community? So that's where we differ and why we say we're not a traditional lender. We also take on more risk than a bank. So sometimes you go to the bank and you have to fit in a box, or they're a little skittish of startups. That's where we come in, and we're willing to take more of a risk, work with the business throughout their lifetime, develop a business plan, coach them through different milestones, and hopefully one day they're bankable and they move on to a local bank. Next slide. So we do have some parameters around our lending that is set by the Treasury Board of Canada, and this is across the nation for all CFDCs. We are capped at $300,000 a loan. We always have to stay at prime +2 for an interest rate, but that always remains fixed. But we don't penalize a business if they pay off early. So they're doing really well and they want to pay off the loan, or they're all of a sudden bankable and the bank wants to pay off that loan. We don't penalize them for that. $300,000, I recognize, doesn't seem like a lot of money in today's dollars, but we do often collaborate with local banks or BDC for more money. So that could be us coming in with a portion and taking a second position on the loan, or doing a pari passu where we come in with the same amount of money and share equal risk with the bank. Next slide. This is a snapshot of what the portfolio currently looks like. It's a couple months out of date. Not really surprising, Smith Falls always leads the pack in the number of loans and that we have on the books, and business support it. It's probably a benefit to our headquarters being located in the town. But this is just kind of an idea of where those funds are. So right now we have about $7 million active in the community. That's actually a lot lower than we would like to see. We obviously were impacted by the pandemic as well. But one of the things that has greatly put a lot more money in the bank than we typically would have, we like to see 90% plus active in the community, is when the Bank of Canada announced its intentions to raise the overnight rate in prime a few months ago, or like a year ago. We had a lot of banks come out and pay out our loans. So before the interest rate went up. So I think we had about somewhere around 23 loans paid off in pretty close quarters, and that put a lot more money back in our bank. Next slide, please. Business services. This is available to any business, whether or not they have a loan with us. That does not matter. So that's typically where you see mentoring, coaching, business workshops. I'm sure you've heard there's a lot of sometimes duplication or overlap in some of our services. So we always try to be mindful of what the Small Business Advisory Center is doing, the Chamber is doing. We come in with different workshops or topics that fill in the gaps based on what they've been offering. Business plan review is a big one. A lot of the times we're doing that when a business is going to the bank or they're going to go through our loan process, but this can take on many different forms. Next slide. So what business services looks like, on average, any year we field about 700 general inquiries. That could just be, I don't know when to charge HST, I don't know how to start up, I need help with business plan, I just don't know anything about starting a business and I need some guidance. When we talk about business advisory meetings, we do about 240 on average. That's when we're sitting down with the business for about 2 hours plus working on something very specific, managing their cash flow, writing their business plan, prepping to succession of the business, what it might be. And then again, we throw in a couple workshops or webinars throughout the year. Next slide, please. During the pandemic, we also renovated. So we updated our 80s dated office to function more as an innovation center. We have the 1,400 square foot room where we do training, and we also wired it up with virtual reality capabilities, recognizing that there's a lot of training coming down the pipeline that will be capable of handling. We put in the digital media lab. We actually, our intern from Algonquin College just started this week, Kashev. He's setting up a bunch of tutorials on how to use it, but the lab is basically a podcasting lab or a photo lab where businesses can come and use state-of-the-art equipment at a very small fee to improve their digital social media, their website, whatnot. And then we always have turnkey. So we have different organizations that co-locate with us, and we also have some different businesses on site, like virtual assistants and a bookkeeper. Next slide, please. And then the third pillar is community economic development. So Not to necessarily be confused with economic development. Community economic development is more of a grassroots thing. So this is where, as a CFDC, we might be able to support a lower tier in a project. Sometimes that is putting funds towards a plan. I know we recently, a few years ago, supported the retail study. The retail study, you guys had done it for the downtown. We might sponsor an event. So we recently sponsored the Maple Syrup Producer Conference for all of Ontario that was held in Perth last month. So those are the types of things that CED comes, but we always look for a strategy and to support a lower tier through that. Next slide, please. But outside of our community futures deliverables with the feds, as I said, we're a standalone not-for-profit. We can take on other contracts. So we've had a long-standing contract with Lanark County for economic development, somewhere around 20 years now that we've had that relationship with them. And we do basically everything your economic development department does. Now, I know the question is always, is Smith Falls included in that? And we have always kept an open line of communication. And on the next slide, you'll see we recently launched a brand and investment website, which Smith Falls was included on. So always been very mindful of keeping the line of communication open with Julia and the team. Next slide. So this is a snapshot of the Invest Lanark County website. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, please do. If you're curious to see what the current action plan for economic development is at the county level, you'll find that on that website. Next slide. And I couldn't walk away without mentioning our board. So as a nonprofit, we do have a board of directors. They're a board of governance, not a board of operations. So they really help us determine the big picture strategy for Valley Heartland and how we will impact the community. We have a board right now of 11 members, but they also review any loan application that comes in that is above $15,000. Anything $15,000 and less, staff have the leeway to make the decision on that. But part of their role is to help to be good stewards of the investment fund and make sure that we're continuing to grow it and manage the risk so future generations of entrepreneurs can receive funds from that. So that's the really fast and quick 101 of Valley Heartland. And I would be more than happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Amber. I know we appreciate all the good work that you do in the county. Colleagues, do you have any questions? Councillor McKenna?
Thank you, Madam Chair. More a comment, just I think Smith Falls as a service hub for the region for many. I've always been of the opinion, so I like the communities that surround us a lot. We rely on them. There's that interdependency. So I like the geography that Valley Heartland covers. If something goes well in Perth, the spin-off, we benefit and vice versa. So I like that whole look that you take. And the same with tourism. If Lanark County tourism is doing well and we're doing well, it's a win-win. So I encourage that collective model as much as possible. So thanks for that. And give my regards to your volunteer board and thank them for their hours of service.
I will, thank you. I think that's a mindset we very much share. Is, we always say, like, what's good for Perth is good for Smith Falls. If something happens somewhere, there's always a trickle effect. So, rising waters raise all ships type of mentality. So I think the regional view really works well, but it's nice that because of the community futures, we can work individually with individual municipalities within that model. So we have a lot of flexibility.
Thank you. Mayor Panko?
Hi, Amber, and thanks for the presentation, and great to see you back in in town hall, which of course you were here for a long time. Just, I guess, two questions are related. Can you give me an example or just walk me through the process? If I was someone who had an idea, wanted to start a new business, how I would embark on that journey and how Valley Heartland would help. And secondly, if I was an established business and I'm looking to the future and in many ways the world is maybe leaving me behind, I want to try to adapt to this changing environment of the digital marketplace, how would you help?
Yeah, so the first part, if they're a new business, we're big on collaboration. So if they come to us first, I usually do a consultation to kind of understand where they're at. Right? Like, what do you know, what don't you know, and then walk them through anything they might need to know. We're also working on developing on-demand webinars for those most frequently asked questions, which is usually around HST and like the basics of that. But we might sit down for 2 or 3 hours and just have a conversation and work through any questions, Zoom, in person, we'll go to them. You can come to us. We're really flexible that way. But then we often bring in the Small Business Advisory Center because sometimes there's questions that I ask that she doesn't ask, and there's questions they ask that I didn't ask. So it really gets a more holistic approach to that. And then making sure that they understand like the ecosystem of support. What does your chamber do? Have you reached out to your employment center? Have you gone to the municipality about bylaws, things that you're going to be aware of? And if there's a specific expertise that we don't have in-house, there's a pretty good chance that I have the direct contact to someone that they need. I think the second part of your question was the challenges with the digital world.
Well, I guess about, let's say, an established business trying to adapt to the business
Yeah.
of today's environment. Yeah.
So one key part of Community Futures is community. The next part is future. So as a staff and a board, we're always trying to look 2 years ahead of everybody else. What are the skills that businesses are going to need to know? What are the challenges, the opportunities that might arise that we need to make sure we're aware of, so we have resources and the knowledge in place to help manage that? So that's one piece of it. A lot of the times at a certain point when a business has grown to a certain size, that's when we bring in the Regional Innovation Center that's funded through the province. So our area is covered by Launch Lab, and they have a team, they call them entrepreneurs in residence. They're people who have run businesses or been in C-suite positions for companies. If that makes sense, we might refer them to that, and sometimes we tag team those. We'll come up with kind of a holistic view, like I'm going to work on this with them and they're going to work on that. Knowledge of our own staff also comes into play. So I'm probably the resident digital media guru and artificial intelligence guru for our staff. But then our general manager is really well versed in like fintech and different things. So that's kind of how we approach it. Sometimes it might be out of the scope of what we're doing if it's specific to manufacturing, and we'll bring in a specific organization and make the connection for the business. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, it does. I think the key thing here is whether you are a new business or an established business, they walk through your door, and there's a multitude of doors you can lead them to, and services and resources that can help them no matter what stage of the business process they're at.
Yeah, sometimes we're just like are really great. We're like the speed dating app sometimes. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn?
Just quickly, I just want to thank you for coming. You're a real source of knowledge and help. I've been in business for years, and believe me, when I started out in business, it was nothing like it is today. So it must be pretty scary to go out there, and you need somebody to be able to give you in the right directions, get you going in the right places, connected to the right people. And I really appreciate that, and I think it's very, very important. The other thing is I want to thank you because I have taken some workshops through Valley Heartland that were excellent and helpful to me. And it's wonderful to know that they're out there. Thank you, Amber. It's really nice to see you.
It was very nice to see you too. And you are right. Sometimes the best role we play is just to not be a family member that can just listen to the problems the business is facing. Like it's not easy to be an entrepreneur, and you don't always want to bring home the challenges. So sometimes we play a little bit of therapist as well.
Thanks for coming tonight, Amber. We really appreciate your time and the update. And I know our economic development team appreciate being able to call you. So thanks for being here.
Thank you again so much for having me. But if you don't mind, I'm going to sneak out and head home for dinner. So it was very nice to see everybody. And nice to meet you, Stephen.
Okay, moving on to CAO and director reports. I know we have several. CAO Morris, can I pass this to you?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have 3 this evening, and we can start with Ms. Julia Crowder.
Thank you. Good evening. A few quick updates. Staff attended the Ontario Municipal Conference last week in Ottawa. The event was well attended by a number of regional municipalities and had touched on a number of our community's key priorities, including attainable housing, workforce and labor development, investment attraction, and employment park development, among other community and economic development trends and best practices. All the presentations from the conference will be available on the conference website in a few weeks, and I'll be sure to pass that on to council, stakeholders, and the community, as well as other staff. The RFP for Center Street closed this Friday. We received 2 proposals for the master plan RFP. The evaluation committee will be meeting this Thursday to review and score submissions and aim to bring a recommendation to committee at its September 28th meeting. And the project is anticipated to commence mid-October. Rideau Artist of the Year event happened this weekend at Heritage House. It received submissions by 37 artists, including 6 youth submissions, and was really well attended by the community as well. The jury is deliberating this week, and the museum is invited artists and the public back on Sunday, September 17th from 1 to 3 p.m. To announce the winners, and the art will be on display until October 15th. Pizza Night fundraiser is also at Heritage House Museum. That will be Friday, September 22nd. Guests will be able to enjoy traditional wood-fired pizza prepared by staff at the Heritage House Museum. It's definitely a really great experience. There is a limited space and tickets are $20 per person. The last one is Fall Fun Fest. That will return to the museum October 1st from 11 to 2. There'll be wagon rides, bouncy castles, midway games, a barbecue, vendors market, all the fun and exciting things that Heritage House puts on every year for the fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much.
And next we have our senior planner, Carl Grink.
Good evening. Just one quick update from me this evening. I'm pleased to announce on behalf of the Municipal Heritage Committee the return of our Heritage Symposium, which is an annual event that the committee has hosted. This is our first one in a couple of years. We're really excited to be back and doing that with things hopefully more back to normal. The Heritage Symposiums, they focus on extending and expanding the local community's knowledge of heritage preservation and the importance of heritage protection within a community. And each year, the symposium, which usually consists of a series of speakers and maybe 60 to 70 attendees, includes citizens of the town, students, municipal staff from other communities, municipal heritage committee members, elected officials, both from Smith Falls and our neighboring communities. So a theme is explored through presentations and discussions, and this year the event is titled Big Plans for Old Places. The event is going to be hosted at the Station Theatre and in the afternoon Railway Museum. Those are landmarks. Those were selected as their landmarks that could have certainly faced a different outcome if different decisions were made in the past, and also if we didn't have the group of folks who did what they did to make them real community landmarks. So we'll be hearing from them and learning about what has really brought those places back to life. And then we'll also be looking more broadly at the concept of space and landscapes. And this symposium will feature speakers from neighboring communities about heritage conservation districts as a tool to recognize and manage change within an identified landscape. So there will be a media release issued later this week to council and staff. The cost of the event is $25, $15 for students. So I wanted to give council the heads up at this point that we are proceeding on October 28th, and we certainly look forward to seeing as many people there as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Grenke? Thanks very much.
And our third and final verbal report comes from Chief Cheeseborough.
Thank you. 4 quick updates for you tonight. We've completed round 1 of the provincial grant funding for the Next Generation 911. As you're aware, we received $560,000 in round 1, and we were able to apply all $560,000 to the development of the Next Generation 911. We are finalizing our grant application for round 2, which is by invitation only. You can only apply for round 2 if you had submitted something for round 1. That's due in by the end of this week. The third update is our radio dispatch. Our replacement is on schedule. Actually, I think it's ahead of schedule. They currently have the equipment in place and they should be testing that equipment at the end of this week or early next week. So we're on schedule to have that delivered and in place by December. And the last update regarding the radio equipment replacement, the radio dispatch replacement, is we have received a very large interest in dispatching services from a major county. So that is something that I will be bringing forward should they request or should they issue an RFP and we submit for that. It could encompass as many as 18 fire departments and a fairly large response area. So they reached out last week. They're thrilled with the new radio system that we're putting in. They've talked to the manufacturer, they've talked to our consultant, and they're quite satisfied that we would be able to provide them with 100% service. So that's a very positive thing for the town to be able to generate another contract of that magnitude. But I will update council once and if an RFP goes out or if they wish to deal with us directly. That's my updates.
Thank you. Quiet horseshoe so far.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I can just augment what the chief was talking about. So this potential contract is large. It would fundamentally change the way we deliver service in terms of volume of calls and so on. So once that comes out, we'll evaluate it and bring a recommendation forward so you can decide whether that's something that we want to pursue. So there's certainly a revenue generating opportunity. There's also, it's of a scope that it would kind of take us past that tipping point of existing capacity. So it's a different dialogue than previous contracts where we added a small community here or there. This is a very large amount of dispatching, and so we'll need to assess it and evaluate it to see if it makes sense, and we'll bring forward a recommendation at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Councillor McKenna?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Chief and CEO Moore, so what is there a framework or a strategic plan for this type of service? Or is this is coming at us? Or is it something that we're actively pursuing? Is this a business model that the town's going to pursuing, and how does that fit into the corporation's business, I guess? Well, and that's a big question, and I don't have another discussion another time. But.
No, through the chair, thank you for that question. We currently have a business model with the current dispatching service. So that was undertaken a number of years ago. With the migration to a new system and the capability to expand, that business model could easily be expanded. But as CEO Morris said, depending on the size and the quantity and the call volume and the population and other criteria that go into determining what the cost level would be, that level of service and increased number of calls would certainly have to be incorporated by supporting staff. At the current time, we have the 6 full-time staff and a part-time dispatcher. But right now we are at with the maximum with our current radio system, and certainly with the capabilities of the current staff that we have. So evaluating the total package and having open discussions, we wouldn't automatically say, yes, we're going to take you on and provide that dispatching services. Before we do that, we have to have a dialogue with council and determine that we have the capability of doing it, because in the dispatching world, you are now in a very legal situation, a very litigious situation in the event that you're not able to fulfill the obligations of a contract. So again, we're mindful of the opportunity, and given the current scope where the provincial police and ambulance service, known as CAC, are slowly getting away from dispatching fire departments. That's not their primary focus. They're getting away from that. That's now opening the door for dispatch centers for additional contracts. I hope that answered it. I'm not sure it did.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Thank you. It just, I was reminded of Owen Sound taking on the 911 for the province. I like the idea of owning. It's just, it's not just. When you consider it, sometimes under the Municipal Act, municipalities can't set up a business corporation or another business, and whether this is getting to the enterprise size where it is a distinct entity is where. So that's just thinking as you ponder this, what's the right model going forward if you're reaching that scale?
Well, I think there's a number of things to consider when we're looking at this potential for additional contracts is our current operating costs. We have seen what the next generation cost is going to be on a yearly basis with the Owen Sound, and they're a primary PSAP and we're secondary. But if we're looking at $380,000 cost for a 5-year deal, at the end of that 5 years and with the provincial funding gone, we're going to have to absorb that cost as a municipality. So, and I'm not saying we're creating a business model to generate revenue, but we certainly need to look at the overall package to ensure that our annual costs are supported by the contracts, our staffing costs are supported by the contracts, and any repairs or maintenance, which would include funding for future upgrades in a system. And we know just based on what the cost the original radio system is and the current radio system, they're only going to escalate. They're not going to decline. So I wouldn't say it would be a business endeavor as a revenue source. I would say it's a corporate decision to cover costs and plan for the future, whether that be through a reserve situation or expanding the current situation and opening the door saying, we're open for additional contracts. But again, they're all going to be RFP based, the same as Lanark County was. So we'll be competing with other jurisdictions. So we need to take a look at the bigger picture. We are currently passing out the information to that county on what the criteria is that we require in order to be able to determine what a cost level would be. So once we get that back, if we get it back, then we would be able to provide a wholesome discussion on what I think we should be and where we should go, and certainly what the department is. But as C.L. Morris said, when we get to that tipping point, we are now going to look into a communications center versus a full-time first-class firefighter working in radio. So depending, we got to weigh the good and the bad and balance it out so that it's not tipped in any one direction.
Thank you, Chief. Councillor Brennan has a question to ask.
No, just a comment. I think that's great information. I think that it's actually a good opportunity for us. And I look forward to that conversation. And when you talk about having a first-class firefighter doing it or having a comm center, well, maybe there's a case to be made for a comm center, but we'll find that out once we go forward. So it's good information. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Chief. Moving along, I'm looking at the clerk, but I don't think we have any consent reports tonight. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Madam Chair, sorry, I just wanted to add one housekeeping item.
Thank you.
So because we're having a special council meeting this evening, there will not likely be a need for one next week, provided everything goes swimmingly this evening on the agenda. So there's a large likelihood we won't have a meeting next week.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. No consent reports this evening, Clerk Costello? Thank you. So we do have a number of in-camera meeting sessions tonight. This first one should be brief and will be before our priority issues. So we do have a recommended motion on the floor, moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Quinn, that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls, as provided in Section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act 2001, as amended, move into a closed meeting at 5:34 p.m. to discuss personal issues about identifiable individuals as it relates to committee appointments. All in favor? Thank you. We'll be back shortly.
MPAC then has a look at that, comes up with a revised value, and you can see it in the report. So it reflects a vacant piece of property. So consequently, the taxes are lesser on that property. The other one is conversion. That's another opportunity for taxes to be adjusted either up or down. In this case, it's a former commercial building at the corner of Maple and William that's been converted. The basement level has been converted to residential, or it's serving a residential purpose now. It used to be commercial. So again, MPAC made that change. So you'll notice in the report that the increase in value of the residential space is exactly the same as the decrease in value of the commercial space. But as we know, the commercial tax rate is higher than the residential, so there's a net reduction in taxes on that property. So this applies both in 2022 or for a portion of 2022 and 2023. Total impact is about $6,400. Now $1,400 of that approximately is the education portion. So the net impact to municipal taxation is approximately $5,000. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. That explanation was good. There's no questions. Thank you, CAO Morris. Okay, so we will move ahead to 10.2, the lease agreement for Victoria Park with Manager Crowder.
Thank you again. So the report before you is with regards to a lease agreement with the Chamber of Commerce for their space at Victoria Park. The recommended motion is that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls pass a bylaw authorizing mayor and clerk to execute a 15-month lease agreement with the Smith Falls and District Chamber of Commerce for the operation of a cantina in Victoria Park. As you know, staff had been working with the Chamber and with Parks Canada for a number of months in order to facilitate a food offering and tourism offering in Victoria Park. We were successful in that. Parks Canada did put some conditions on it as part of their July 4th report, which includes an operating season that's consistent with the navigation season of the lock system. So that's between May and October. So we were able to facilitate a trial period with the Chamber for that 15-month period based on the time that they actually started. So the Chamber went through their due diligence and received final statutory approvals, and they opened the cantina Thursday, August 3rd. Staff have been working with the Chamber in order to facilitate and draft this agreement, and we're finally here able to bring it to Council for approval and ratification.
Thank you, appreciate that. Any questions? Thumbs up? Great, thank you. Okay, moving on to appointment of new municipal law enforcement officer with Chief Cheeseborough. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Report tonight, 2023-105, the appointment of municipal bylaw enforcement officer. My recommendation is that Council of the Corporation of Town of Smith Falls pass a bylaw to appoint Sierra Swindells as a bylaw enforcement officer for the Town of Smith Falls. Section 15 of the Police Act provides council municipality may appoint persons to enforce the bylaws. Due to a recent resignation of our bylaw enforcement staff, we initiated a recruitment, and we're very fortunate to offer a position to Sierra Swindells. Sierra brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in animal control. Approximately 6 years she worked for the SPCA down in Nova Scotia. She is relocated from her, I believe she lived in Merrickville. She's relocated now 3 doors up from the municipal building on Church Street, and has been dealing with a number of calls since she arrived August the 28th. Following successful recruitment, staff's recommending council appoint Sierra as bylaw enforcement officer. The financial implications are included in the 2023 budget.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? Thumbs up?
Great.
Great.
Welcome to Smith Falls.
Thank you. Yes, pass on our congratulations. Okay, compensation review award, RFP. CAO Morris.
Yeah, so this was a project that's, I would say, long overdue. We did budget for it in 2023, so the monies exist to move forward with this. So there are two broad objectives with this engagement. First is to relook at our compensation rates for our non-union staff. And as council will know, we live in a very competitive world for employees and talent, and we felt that the time was right to do this. The other broad objective is to make sure we comply with pay equity legislation in terms of equal work for equal, or equal pay for equal work. So we've wrapped those two together and put out an RFP. We issued it in June, closed in late July. We had a great, robust response. We had 6 proponents submit proposals to us. So we had a staff evaluation team that went through each one. And we used a numeric ranking system, not unlike the one we employ with other similar types of engagements. So we were looking at, their experience, the quality of the team, their understanding of the scope of work, that kind of stuff. So we ranked them numerically, and what you'll see on page 2 of the staff report is the results of that evaluation exercise. And we also are showing the price proposal that each one submitted. So in this case, the highest scoring proponent is also the lowest price. So fairly nice, neat, tidy package. I have to say they were all fabulous proposals. Any one of them could do it. We felt on balance that Gallagher had a better offering than the others. And particularly as it relates to providing us tools to do the job evaluations on our own in the future, so we won't have to rely on an outside consulting resource. So we felt it was a better value for money, and consequently are recommending it this evening.
Thank you, and I'm really glad to see us moving ahead with this review. You and I were talking this week about talent attraction and retention, and it's not getting any easier in this market. So I think we all agree that our people are our biggest strength. So I appreciate this investment. Other comments or questions? Councillor Brennan, thank you.
No, I agree. It's, if you read the report, the current system we have has been since 1990. So it's high time for sure. I guess one question, and I totally support this firm doing it. Do they look at comparables, i.e. other municipalities of very similar size and job descriptions they're in?
Through the chair, yes, they do. In fact, we've been on the receiving end of being a comparator for the same company when they're doing other compensation reviews. So we're familiar with their process. And one of the impressive parts of their proposal was they're going to spend time sitting down with us to come up with the right comparables. And the relevance of that is that we are a single tier municipality. So to the extent possible, we want to compare ourselves to other single tier municipalities, similar size, ideally the same geography. So yes, they have a really robust way of choosing between 7 and 10 comparators.
Yeah, thank you. And through the chair, I think it's a fair thing to do for our valued employees. So time to get on with it.
Councillor McKenna?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know that they fall under the umbrella, but would the police services have their own independent approach to this? Or is there any way that we can leverage that, or do they not? I know they're distinct. I just want to be clear.
Yes, so again, through the chair, great question. And in fact, I'm glad you raised it because this only applies to non-union staff. And the reason for that is salaries and wages are negotiated through collective bargaining with our bargaining units. And so police is one, reporting to a separate board, but also fire is a separate bargaining unit as our QP employees. So we tend to deal with those equity and compensation issues at the bargaining table, where this approach, I think, applies perfectly well where it's a non-union group.
And just to follow up, is the CAO position included in the review?
It is, yes.
Thank you.
Questions? Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Great.
And you're on for the next one too.
All right.
Thank you.
Lots of thumbs tonight. So the next one is a reappointment to what's called the Source Water Protection Committee. So committee may recall many years ago, the province introduced source water protection zones to protect and identify potential causes of contamination within a water intake for a municipal water system. And with that, criteria were developed, and there was a committee that was struck at the time to do all this work. There is some maintenance to that kind of work. Things change and criteria may change. Climate change may have an impact on how we look at source water protection. So this particular group felt it wasn't necessary to have an appointee from the urban centers within the Lanark County area, being Perth, Carleton Place, and Smith Falls, but instead we would appoint one. That person has been Diane Smithson from Carleton Place. She's done a great job. She wants to continue, and we thought it would be a good idea for her to continue. So that's the genesis of our recommendation tonight.
Thank you.
Good
Many
choice.
thumbs up.
Great.
Great, thank you. And final priority item is with Director Costello, committee appointments.
Thank you. I'm looking for council to pass a resolution this evening to formally appoint the DBA members that were in principle discussed last week at Committee of the Whole, and the additional application received from Sarah Patterson. With council's concurrence, would like to bring forward a resolution this evening as I believe they have a meeting tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Costello. And thank you to all the committee members with the DBA. There's a lot of new energy around that table. We appreciate people stepping up. Okay, so we are going to move into another in-camera session. And this one is section 2392 of the Municipal Act. And the motion is made by Councillor Robinson and seconded by Councillor McGuire, the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls, as provided in section 2392K of the Municipal Act 2001, as amended, move into a closed meeting at 5:50 p.m. to discuss a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you for your patience as we go into this.
just getting the okay from Sean that we're back in live session.
We're just waiting on Councillor McKenna.
He's the one.
Councillor Miller, we're back into open session.
Thank you. Okay, welcome back. Thank you for your patience. The rise and report for item 9.2 is that council provided direction to staff regarding negotiations being carried on by or on behalf of the municipality. I had to declare a conflict of interest once I learned the nature of item 9.3 due to a potential conflict based on my employment and the relationship to this topic. So I asked Councillor Quinn to chair this section. So Councillor Quinn, can you give the rise and report on the 9.3?
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Yes, 9.3, the rising report is we have given staff direction on dealing with this particular motion.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any committee, board, or external organizational updates? Seeing none. We do have 2 items of correspondence. 11.1, Director McMunn will bring forward a report to a future COW meeting, and item 11.2 is just for information. Does council have any questions or comments on this correspondence at this time? Thank you. We have no notice, or do we have any notice of motions, I guess is the question. Seeing none. I have a motion for adjournment. Councillor McGuire moves, seconded by Councillor Robinson, that the committee adjourn its proceedings at 7:05 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. Thank you. Good night.
All in favor?
Oh, all in favor? I was done. Thank you.
Would you like to take a couple-minute break? 2 minutes?
2 minutes, be plenty, yeah. I will open the meeting with our land acknowledgement. On September 11, 2023, we acknowledge that the sacred land in which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We're also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. I will call this meeting to order. Ask for approval of the agenda. Any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, with Councillor McKenna. Moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Robinson. The September 11th, 2023 council meeting agenda be approved as circulated. All in favor? That is carried. Ask for disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest and general nature thereof for anything on the agenda. Seeing none. We have no approval of minutes. Any council reports and updates? Councillor Miller.
Thank you. So I'm happy to report that the library tender has gone out for the renovation of the children's area of the library. This renovation will add a much needed washroom on that floor and make the floor accessible by the installation of an elevator for our children and their families. The tender will close at the end of this month, and we're hopeful to have bids. We're hopeful that bids come in under budget, and that with any luck, preliminary work can start later this year, with construction wrapping up by the end of 2024. I'd like to thank the library board for their hard work over the years in getting us to this stage. It's been a long time coming, and also to our planning staff and the Heritage Committee for helping to move this along. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any further reports? Yes, Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick one. As your representative for public health, Lanark Leeds Grenville, or Leeds Grenville Lanark, I provided this update at County Council last Wednesday. At the AMO conference, the province announced plans for public health. One was to increase the base funding 1% a year for the next 3 years. Two was to review the work that public health units do in Ontario. So they have a mandatory list of services that public health must deliver. That's going to be fully reviewed, and the job description for public health will change over the coming years. And I think I'm confident the public will be invited to comment on what they think their local public health unit should do. And finally, the province did announce that they expect public health units across Ontario to voluntarily enter into merger discussions with neighboring or like-minded public health agencies. So, and they will provide the funding to assist with those complex discussions. Lanark Leeds Grenville Public Health has a long-standing and good working relationship with its neighboring public health units. So you can expect that we will be entering into discussions with our neighbors in some direction. Ottawa and Toronto are exempt. In particular, they're looking at public health units to go to a minimum of 500,000 people in the population they're serving. Currently, our health unit serves about 170,000. So to get to that threshold, you're probably looking at Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox, and Addington, Hastings, Prince Edward, so much larger entities voluntarily having this discussion starting this year, with mergers to happen in 2025. So that is a very short window, but given the strong relationships we have, so I want our board's aware of it. The public is aware. It is public information. And our public health board, your public health board, is meeting Thursday night. We'll have a further in-depth discussion at that time. Thank you.
Any further reports? No? Okay, moving on. I've got a couple of proclamations this evening. The first one is Alzheimer's Society, Lanark Leeds Grenville World Alzheimer's Day, September 21st, 2023. Whereas World Alzheimer's Day takes place annually on September 21st, as a day in which organizations dedicated to fighting Alzheimer's disease and other dementias can raise awareness about this cause. Whereas people living with dementia in our community are made to feel accepted and welcomed throughout the town of Smith Falls, and that Smith Falls is an inclusive space for people living with Alzheimer's disease and other dementias and their care partners and families. And whereas the Alzheimer's Society, Lanark Leeds Grenville provides support education programs and services to all citizens of Lanark County. And whereas the well-being of persons living with Alzheimer's disease and other dementias is of value to all in our community and supports our community as a whole. Whereas the water tower will be illuminated in blue for World Alzheimer's Day on September 21st, 2023. Now, therefore, I, Sean Panko, Mayor of the Town of Smith Falls, do hereby proclaim September 21st, 2023 as World Alzheimer's Day in the Town of Smith Falls, and urge all citizens of our community to celebrate, show support, and raise awareness this World Alzheimer's Day. Secondly, recognition of September 30th as a National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Whereas the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, TRC, released its final report on June 2nd, 2015, which included 94 calls to action to redress the legacy of residential schools and advance the process of Canadian reconciliation. And whereas the recent discoveries of remains and unmarked graves across Canada have led to increased calls for all levels of government to address the recommendations in the TRC's calls to action. Whereas all Canadians and all orders of government have a role to play in reconciliation. And whereas recommendation number 80 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission called upon the federal government in collaboration with Aboriginal peoples to establish as a statutory holiday a National Day of Truth and Reconciliation to ensure that public commemoration of the history and legacy of residential schools remains a vital component of the reconciliation process. Whereas the federal government has announced September 30th, 2021 as a first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, National Orange Shirt Day, and a statutory holiday. Therefore, be resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls to hereby commit to recognize in September 30th, 2023 as a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, National Orange Shirt Day, by sharing the stories of residential school survivors, their families, and communities. And further, be resolved that the water tower be illuminated in orange for the week of September 29th to October 2nd, and that survivors' flag be flown from September 25th to October 2nd, 2023 at Laurel Reach Park. And as in the past 2 years, the town will be hosting a ceremony the evening of September 30th. So further details will emerge as that becomes available. Okay, we have no items on our consent agenda tonight. We have a few motions. Our first is with Councillor Maguire, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenna. The Council endorsed the reappointment of Diane Smithson to the Source Water Protection Committee as the Municipal Surface Water Member on behalf of the Town of Smith Falls for the next 5-year term.
Thank you. It's moved by discussion, Councillor Maguire?
This is a reappointment to the Source Water Protection Committee that I don't think they meet that regularly, but semi-regularly in order to make sure that our drinking water sources are protected. So for Smith Falls, that'd be the swale upstream of Abbott Street and William Street.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Moved by Councillor Maguire and seconded by Councillor McKenna. The Council endorsed the reappointment of Diane Smithson to the Source Water Protection Committee as a Municipal Surface Water Member on behalf of the Town of Smith Falls for the next 5-year term. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And Councillor Brennan, you're up next.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Quinn, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls award RFP 23 CORP01 to Gallagher Benefit Services Group in the amount of $29,965 excluding GST, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute all necessary documentation for this project.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yeah, CO Morris brought this to us earlier this evening, and this is to have a look at our pay equity program and a compensation review for our non-union employees. That hasn't been reviewed since 1990, so overdue, and everyone supports it. So.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, it's moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Quinn. The Council of the Corporation of Town of Smith Falls award RFP 23-Corp-01 to Gallagher Benefit Services, Inc. in the amount of $29,965, excluding HST, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute all the necessary documentation for this project. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And Councillor Miller, you have our next motion.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Quinn that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls appoint the following applicants to the Downtown Business Association for the remainder of the 2022 to 2026 term of council, or until new appointments are made via resolution. Liz Wood, appointee for Pickled Pig, Don Prude, appointee for Salon Aurora, Jay Lee, Primerica, Susie Knoll, Lighthouse Cafe, Sarah Patterson, Uplifted Spa.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Yeah, due to some staffing changes at local businesses, the DBA had to fill some vacancies. I'd like to thank all of the board members of the DBA for their hard work, and our downtown has never looked better. So.
Thank you. Any further comments? It is moved by Councillor Miller and seconded by Councillor Quinn. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smiths Falls appoint the following applicants to the Downtown Business Association for the remainder of the 2022-2026 term of council until new appointments are made via resolution. Liz Wood, appointee for Pickle Pig, Don Prude for Salon Aurora, Jay Lee for Primerica, Susie Noel for Lighthouse Cafe, and Sarah Patterson for Uplifted Spa. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. That's the end of our motions. We have some bylaws to look after. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Miller that a bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute a 15-month lease agreement with the Smiths Falls and District Chamber of Commerce for the operation of a cantina in Victoria Park be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor Robinson and seconded by Councillor Miller that a bylaw authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a 15-month lease agreement with the Smiths Falls and District Chamber of Commerce for the operation of a cantina in Victoria Park be received for the first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Robinson?
Yes. This is put into effect this year for a term basically a year and a half now. That the chamber has been trying to get a cantina down in Victoria Park up and running, and they finally got it, and it's a trial period to see how well it goes.
Thank you. Anything further? And a third reading, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Miller, that a bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute a 15-month lease agreement with the Smiths Falls and District Chamber of Commerce for the operation of a cantina in Victoria Park be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10476-2023.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor Robinson and seconded by Councillor Miller that a bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute a 15-month lease agreement with the Smiths Falls and District Chamber of Commerce for the operation of a cantina in Victoria Park be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10476-2023. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And Councillor Quinn, your final piece of business for tonight.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Robinson, that a bylaw to appoint Sierra Swindells as a bylaw enforcement officer for the town of Smith Falls be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor Quinn and seconded by Councillor Robinson. A bylaw to appoint Sierra Swindells as a bylaw enforcement officer for the town of Smith Falls be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Quinn?
We're very happy to have Sierra here with us. She came from Nova Scotia where she was working for the SPCA, so she brings a lot of knowledge with her, and we're very happy to have her on board.
Thank you. Any further commentary? Give a third reading, please.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Robinson, that a bylaw to appoint Sierra Swindells as a bylaw enforcement officer for the town of Smith Falls be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10477-2023.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor Quinn and seconded by Councillor Robinson. The bylaw to appoint Sierra Swindells as a bylaw enforcement officer for the town of Smith Falls be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10477-2023. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. That's it for formal business. Any inquiries or announcements? Yes, Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, just a quick one for this Sunday, September 17th at the Legion, the Evergreen Avenue Committee are going to have their annual event where community builders are honored with a stone along Evergreen Avenue in Victoria Park. So this year's inductees are well known to us all. Former Councillor Jack Traynor and Rotarian Clayton Holbrook, John Halpin, and Hal Botham. So All are welcome. The Legion will do a presentation prior to that on their banner program that is just getting going, so that will be interesting. And also the Evergreen Avenue Committee, and Evergreen Avenue is a function of Real. So our friend Peter Rao will be there to give an update from Real as well. So, and the Legion will be providing a light lunch. So all are welcome at 1 o'clock on Sunday.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Miller.
Thank you. Just two quick announcements. There are still team spaces available for the Smiths Falls Chamber Golf Tournament on Friday. If you want to enter a team, call the Chamber office. The number is 283-1334. And the DBA is going to be hosting its annual Girls' Night Out. So it is going to be the rodeo edition. So it will be held on September 23rd in downtown Smiths Falls. You can check out the Smiths Falls Downtown Business Association Facebook page for all of the details, and we would welcome everyone to attend.
Everyone?
Yes.
Thank you. And I can see by Councillor Quinn's face, she's very excited, looking forward to it.
She didn't put there that the after hours would start at 5 o'clock, so it's not like they're actually going to have a mechanical bull. Oh.
Well, here's an attraction. I see Morris is now excited too. Okay, anything else tonight? Okay, our adjournment is with Councillor Brennan, please.
All right. Moved by myself, second by Councillor McKenna, that this council adjourn its proceedings at 7:25 and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor McKenna. This council adjourns proceedings at 7:25 p.m. and stands so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.